Kenya, Kenya, so many kinds of animals there. Kenya, Kenya, you cannot see them elsewhere. Kenya, Kenya, in the southern half of Africa, you know Kenya, Kenya, that's where you should go.
Okay guys, this is Mwalimu Juma. I'm here with my friend and a very big friend of mine who is also a teacher, and he is an expert in academic analytic, or we can say he's an expert in academics.
He's an analyst. Analyst, yes.
Yeah, analyst in in education. In education reforms since 1963. So I think I'll have some quick questions to you so that you can tell people more about those education reforms.
Yes.
This that year of 1963. So I have a question here. Was there an education system before independence? And if there was, which one was it, and how did it work, or what was its formation?
All right, Mwalimu, before independence, that's to mean that before 1963,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
That's to say that was 1962 and below.
Below, yes.
There was an education that existed during the colonial era, because we know that the whole of Africa was colonized by the Europeans, but there was an education system that was being conducted those days. However, this education wasn't like the current, because there was no freedom, there was no privacy for Africans.
Yes.
Because they were being controlled by the Europeans. So the people who came to the land came to take over everything,
Yes.
even education. So there existed an education system those days, but this education was divided into three. Mwalimu, there was number one, an African education.
Yes.
And in this African education, only Africans could be allowed in those schools. So that's to mean that they were already separated
Yes.
From their colonizers, you see?
Yes.
Because apart from the African education, we had the European education. This European education, of course, it was for the white people.
Yes.
And also we had the Asian education. So you can see that both the Asians and the Europeans were colonizers in Africa, yet they were still divided.
Yes.
Because we had the European education and the Asian education. So I don't know if they could share classes, the two colonizers, the Europeans and the Asians, I don't know. But with the Africans, an African child could not be found in a European class.
Yes.
What are you going to do there? No, so it was specifically Africans for Africans, and the only thing that Africans were taught those days in those African schools was the basic concepts of communication skills and numerical skills. And they were these Europeans had an intention that education that the Africans were given was to help them run their businesses. For example, an African has been employed by a European on his or her farm.
Yes.
So the basic concept of numerics, that numerics deals with numbers, the math concepts, just a few of it, that this African can be able to calculate in terms of if it's counting those animals on the farm, if it's counting those bags of produce, yes. And that one of communication was majorly to enable them communicate well with their employers, the Europeans or the Asians. So that education was very much separated.
Yes.
Because African education was basically that numerics and communication skills, just to enable them move with the Europeans or the Asians of those days. And you see, there was a statement according to a report.
Yes.
According to a report given by the first commission that was set by the President of the Republic of Kenya after independence.
Yes.
There was a commission that was led by Ominde. So it's called the Ominde Report
Yes.
of 1964.
Yes.
So you find that in that report is where the three systems of education, the three types of education came in.
Yes.
But now, according to this stratification, that categorization of the African education, European education, and Asian education, that strata was based on an assertion by the Europeans that the mental development of an average adult, African adult, was the same as that of a 7 to 8 year old child, European boy or girl. So you can see that they had taken down the Africans to the floor.
Yes.
That a small, what's the average age of a person? Average. Maybe 45 to 50 years,
Yes.
the average age of a person. So that a 45 to 50-year-old African had the same thought as that of a 7 to 8-year-old European child. So we were on the floor. There's nothing that an African could do, basically, according to them.
Yes.
So that's why the comparison came in. That an average African adult will have the same mental development as that of a 7 to 8-year-old European boy or girl. So you can see that education after independence, that's after 1963.
Yes.
So starting 1964, the president said that no, we cannot be slaves anymore. They have left the country.
Yes.
They live with everything they came with. So there was a commission that was set to investigate into the matter. And you know that we see that in that so that report was given by Gashadi in 1976. That of comparing an average adult with a 7 to 8-year-old European boy or girl. So after that, what was the aim of that Ominde's report? Why was it basic to the country?
Yes.
We ask ourselves that question. Ominde report was set to reflect on, or rather to introduce, maybe it was to suggest an education that could bring sovereignty to the country.
Yes.
Sovereign power. We say that sovereignty, as we used to define sovereignty in history, that sovereignty is that power that someone has. You know that in a family, if a father makes a decision, a neighbor cannot come and say, don't do that.
Yes,
If a father says, okay, we are now shifting, we are relocating from this area to this area, the neighbor cannot come and interfere.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's the sovereign power of the father as the head of the family.
Yes.
So the sovereignty of the nation was pegged on making its own decisions. Yeah. So a country was to make reforms
Yes.
of education whenever it wanted to. Yeah. So that's the reason why we had that commission, the Ominde Report Commission, that was delivered to the president, and maybe others were worked on, others were not worked on. Yes.
Okay.
So that's just a brief of the education that existed before 1963.
I've heard that, and you have just explained very, very nice. So I think I have question number 2. After the independence in 1963, reforms were made on education and another system of education was introduced. Could you give a brief explanation about its formation?
All right. After independence, that is in 1964.
Yes.
Now the country having gained its sovereign power, yes, with the freedom that now we can change anything that we will see is beneficial to our citizens. So there was another, because that you can see that education that existed during the colonial era had some form of insults to Africans. You see,
Yes.
it had some form of insults. But so now the after receiving that sovereign power, that freedom, now the country decides that we can now make our decisions.
Yes.
We can make choices and nobody will interfere.
Correct.
Right? So they decided that now let us use the commission's report to see which education system best fits our citizens and our learners, that will enable them maybe blend into the competitive world. And that's when this system was now introduced, the 7-4-2-3 system of education, whereby we had we had 7 years in primary school. We had 4 years in maybe upper in the secondary. Remember that we were going up to from 5-6 during those times.
Yes.
Yeah, from 5-6. So the breakdown is that this system of education was introduced in 1964, and it lasted for 21 years. Yeah. So from 1964 up to 1985, that education led that's the education that Kenya has been through.
Yes.
That has been using up to after 21 years. That is 1985. Now, you see that this education system comprised of 7 years of primary schooling, 4 years of lower secondary.
Yes.
Of lower secondary schooling. Then we had that's from 1 to from 4, like it has been in it for 4. We have had it from 1 up to from 4.
Yes.
Then we had 2 years of upper secondary. The 2 years of upper secondary.
We have lower secondary and
we had upper secondary. We had lower secondary from 1 up to from 4.
Yes.
Then we came and had 2 years of upper secondary. That was the one referred to as from 5 and from 6.
Okay.
If our parents have ever talked about it, that you hear parents saying that we went up from 6.
Yes.
That was the one they went through. So from 1 up, from 5 and from 6 upper secondary. Then the 3 years, because we have the 7-4-2-3. The 3 years was now for university.
Yes.
It was now for university. However, the above structure, the 7-4-2-3 education, did not include the preschool. Preschool is the PP1 and the PP2.
Yes.
So basically, one was to go for 16 years schooling, but the preschool was omitted. So if you say that, was there a preschooling those days? Because what we know that I basically went through only the nursery school. I don't remember going through the PP1 and PP2. Maybe in some days that after that education was introduced. But if you look at the same structure, even the 844, it wasn't very much considered on that preschool.
Yes.
It has become intense in the CBC, which we shall be looking at later in the day.
Okay.
Yeah. So up to that point, that that education system that had from Form 1 up Form 4, then Form 5 and Form 6. It still had some criticism, especially when we go back to the primary level. So all these things were discussed in a report of which we shall look into it as time goes by. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Now, I have another question, which is question 3. In 1964, the first educational commission led by Ominde was formed, and thereafter the report was submitted for implementation. Precisely and briefly, what was the aim of Ominde's report?
So as we started, we said that Ominde commission was the first commission, the first working party of the president on education in 1964. So this report was made and submitted to the president, but it wasn't very clear on what it suggested. But now here came researchers who now decided to probe into the report and find out what the report entailed. You see? And this is where we came up, where this researcher called Simiyu, in 2001, went into that research and came up with the aim of the report that was submitted to the president. So, according to the research that was conducted in 2001, it says that the principal preoccupation, so that's the aim of that report, the principal preoccupation for Minde's report was to introduce an education system that would promote national unity and inculcate in the learners the desire to serve their nation. So that promote national unity. The principal preoccupation of the report was to promote national unity. We look at the colonial era education. It was separating, right? Why would I say that it was a separative education? Because no African child could be found in a European school. So that was just Europeans to be on their own, Asians on their own, and Africans on their own. But now the report comes and says that no, I think we require unity to run this country. Because without unity, you can never be together with people, you can never converse with people. So Ominde's report, basically, according to research by Simi in 2001, says that it aimed at introducing an education which will promote national unity and inculcate. To inculcate is to cultivate. Yeah, you cultivate your farm so that you can harvest good. So to inculcate in the learners the desire to serve their nation. Serving the nation in what ways? If we say that I am a servant of the nation, that's to mean that you can be able to report any security threat that you come across to the authority. That's to protect your nation. You are serving the nation. You are working towards maybe if you pay tax, you are serving the nation. So it was just meant to produce a child or a learner or a citizen that will be flexible to the nation. If you are called upon to do something for the nation, just go. Like you remember, there's a time during the colonial era, before those fightings and all those, people were required to now join hands and fight those wazungos during the Mau Mau. That they were referring to it as Muzungu aende Ulaya, Mwafrika apate uhuru, Mau Mau. So that unity was required, and Ominde's report was aimed at making sure that one was an African culture. We work together with people, we win. They say that two hands are better than one, right? Correct. Yeah. So we work together in unity and peace. So inculcating that principle of a learner or a citizen serving his or her nation. That's the report according to Simiyu's research of 2001. Yes.
Okay. Now we are moving on. Question 4. The 7423 education system had some shortcomings and therefore faced criticism.
Yes.
They do okay. Do you think this system of education faced criticism?
Despite the reforms,
Yes.
you know that basically philosophers, there's a certain type of philosophers that believe that nothing is complete in this world. Around the globe, nothing is complete. They do believe that everything is still in the making process.
Yes.
They say that, for example, this coat, the way it's like this, it can still be modified.
Yes.
They can add a flower here, they can add a pocket wear,
Yes.
just to make it good.
Good. Yes.
Look at maybe talk of this structure. Looking at it, basically you can say that this is complete. But there's an architect that can come and say no, you can still improve this thing.
Yes.
Yeah. So everything that we see around the globe is still in the making process and can be modified into a better thing.
Yes.
So this education system, having undergone a reform, it still faced some challenges and criticisms, and those were based on research. And the reason I'm saying yes, it faced criticisms and challenges is because there was a research conducted, and the outcome was that the education had got some shortcomings that were to be improved. Remember that
So many kinds of animals there. Kenya, Kenya. You cannot see them elsewhere. Kenya, Kenya. In the southern half of Africa, you